Testing audio.
I can hear you. Can you hear me well, Ed?
I can hear you well. Let's
Awesome. That's
wow.
great.
I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad that was pretty seamless just now. For
Awesome.
at least
Let's
on
keep it
my
that
end,
way.
getting you here. We got this far. This is great.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. So let's say hello to everybody out there who's new to the show. Welcome to Let's Talk Tridactyls from myself, former archaeologist, former museum educator. You can find me and my theory at Tridactyls or tridactyls.com. And what else could I say? You can find a couple of videos there, some papers I wrote, and we even have a store there if you want to buy some groovy t-shirts or merchandise. I don't know if we're that popular yet. So we're going to skip the normal show of talking about this and that artifact, but we're going to stay on topic. We're definitely staying on topic with the Nazca mummies, and we have an author here today. Now, I have to admit, David, I've billed you as David Velasco, and I've neglected to put the F at
No
the
worries.
end.
That's fine. Yeah.
I didn't mean to neglect that F of yours there. I don't know. Is that part of your pen name?
Yeah, it is. Sort of.
Okay, great. So, is this your first book, The Message from Nazca?
Yes, it's my first book.
How exciting. Okay.
Yeah, it was quite a journey.
Yeah, you know what? Why don't you give the listeners, what you say, quite a journey. Let's, before we even get into the nuts and bolts of the topic, let's just talk about what does surround making a book happen.
Right. So, I mean, the first time I heard the case of the Nazca mummies, I believe was, 2016 or so. So that caught my attention. But the beginning, I have to say, I was very skeptical. Um, so what I did was start, investigating. I'm not an archaeologist like you are. I come from a different field, but in my background, I do a lot of research, investigations, data analysis, forecasting models. So kind of that's my background that helped me, to run this investigation, and that's what I started doing 4 or 5 years, and then I published the book in 2024. But I'm not a scientist, so my decision was to doing some research, but related to the mythology, the lore, the folklore of the people, the ancient people from Peru or Bolivia and the north part of Chile. That's where I feel more comfortable to.
And
I
where are you
always like
from?
ufology. I'm from Chile.
Okay.
I'm
And
based in
so,
Chile, so for me, traveling to Peru or even Bolivia, that's not that
reasonable, right?
far.
Yeah,
It's doable,
it's
um,
doable.
it's doable. So yeah, I started, I think, in 2018, um, and I met Joyce Mantilla back then. I went
Excellent.
to University of Ica. I
Very
met the
good.
professors. I met the people at the university. I, of course, saw the mummies by my own eyes, and yeah, that was amazing. I said to myself, if this is right, this is real. It has to be somehow reflected in the lore, in the myth, in the ancient tales of the native people from Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. That was the motivation for me. Took me like 4 or 5 years, uh, reading, investigating, but traveling as well. Something that I learned is that you have to visit the places. You cannot be. In this investigation, I read a lot. I have some books here in the bag, and I have a lot more books in my computer. But you have to be in the places. You have to feel, breathe the places where these tales comes from. You have to talk to the people there. That's why it took me so long to write this book. But actually, it's like a 4 or 5 pieces. I split it in one, but actually there are 2, 3, or 4 more coming
I see.
right up.
Okay, so that is a lot of a content then. Yeah.
Yeah. it wasn't an easy decision to make, but I believe it was more easy to, let's say, for the narrative, it was easy to split the content in three or four pieces.
So to be clear, what was the impetus for all this? What was the moment that you said, I'm going to be writing about this topic?
Well, I mean, it was inside myself for a long time. I mean, I follow the. I'm not a UFO guy, but I certainly like the topic. I read all Citria Sitchin, von Däniken, Hancock books. I come from more from that angle of the ufology, from that line of the ufology, and so I believe this was my call. I was suspecting the right time to do it, to execute some work that I was planning to.
So I guess what I want to know is, have you always been interested in these type of beings before the bodies appeared, or was it the bodies appearing on the stage that inspired you to write the book?
I believe it was the beings.
Yeah,
it was the beings because there's a lot of in the ufology world. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, you can find motivation everywhere nowadays, right?
Right.
To do something if you want.
Like for example, for me, it was recognizing the bodies from petroglyphs in Canada and the Caribbean, and that's where I began my journey.
I saw your presentation. Yeah.
Right. So, well, and again, I wanted to just talk about the difficulties of a book writing. Could you give anyone any tips who's just writing a book on any topic? What could you tell them?
Oh, I mean, you have to you have to make time. You have to create time out of, I don't know, from any moment you have. I mean, sounds like, I know, but it's true. You don't, because it takes a lot of time to read, to investigate. But then you have a manuscript that you think everything is ready. But after the manuscript, there comes a ton of work, editing, the pictures, all the diagrammations and then if you want to look for a publisher or you want to go on your own. In my case, I do the later. I went on my own. Of course, I try a publisher, but in this topic is not easy to find someone, right?
I imagine.
Yeah. So, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You
Now,
have to be very consistent. Yeah.
Okay, that seems like good advice, and it sounds like be consistent and keep doing it whenever the time allows to make it happen, huh?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say to anyone listening, though, that you and I we haven't collaborated on anything. We've only just touched base a little bit trying to make this happen. And so I'm just curious about what some of the overlaps are going to be on on both of our two different paths of research.
Yes.
And so I think one of the big things is going to be the cosmological or mythological or religious elements of these beings, what we've both sort of found. So let's, I would like to, and of course I haven't read your book yet because we're going to wait for the English copy, right?
I have news for that. That book is coming. That book is coming.
Good. That's great. I'll add it.
This is news. This is news to be announced here. So yeah,
breaking news. I'm glad to hear
breaking
it.
News.
Okay.
Breaking news.
The English version of the Message from Nazca will be released, and I know I will be picking up a copy. I'm building a fine little collection of Tridactyl Nazca mummy books. Who would have thought this would be happening, right?
Nice.
What fun. It's a very fun topic for me. But again, I believe you've found some cosmological connections, and maybe you too were guided by perhaps some of the material culture, some of the artifacts and the artistry left by the peoples of South America. So maybe you could tell us that, or tell us it also, again, where I'm keep talking about beginnings. Where does this research, what's that one point that begins this research that's like, I have this information, now I'm running forward?
Well, I believe it was I mean, the tipping point, let's say, right? When you take the decision to going forward, it was when I realized that there is information in the ancient myths of the people in Peru and Bolivia, and also in Chile. So I found, some information that also serves the investigation, the investigation from the scientists on the biological side of the bodies, But once I found this, I said to myself, okay, I have to go on. The information is there. No one has looked before this. No one has taken a look. No one realizes, but it's there. I mean, it's for everybody to look for it, right? You have to be very consistent. You have to read a lot. It's not that easy to find, right? All books, it's not like a search of three-finger people in a 600
It's
pages book. No, you won't
you
find
do
it.
have you have to
You
get
won't
creative.
find it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
I find
for
that
me,
that's a
that
great
was,
point that I
yeah,
think everyone should realize that, just because you're doing research on the internet, you have to still find quality sources. And one of the
yes,
best sources are just books that have been uploaded, because those books do not always come out in the search engines as you bring up, right?
right. So I
So
was very careful in the book, in the quotes, bringing the where I read this, what is the exact book where I get this quote, the version, the year. I was very rigorous in that regard. Um,
meticulous, yeah.
Meticulous, yeah, very, very. I think
Hmm.
serves the purpose.
That's
Yeah, for the
good.
people that wants to look for it, there is.
Yeah, and I even get I get lax with that too, because I've been on such a research crave that I just some sort of just compiling things and putting things in my head and copying pictures, and it's like afterwards, it's like, where did that come from?
That happens to me as well. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Where did I get that? Now I'm going through
oh my god,
files
that
looking
was
for something
terrible.
that I probably should have just kept.
Yeah, yeah. Now I learned
Keep your
that.
links, keep your resources. And
That's a
that's
good
what I
tip.
tell the skeptics too. The skeptics, when they say, I say, well, what specimen? What expert? What report? And instead of just vagaries of,
Yeah, that's terrible.
something.
That
So
happened to
anyway, we're
me.
talking about
Yeah.
the cosmological,
Yes.
mythological things that you say are out there to be found and gleaned by the
Yeah.
audience.
So, I mean, I believe the topic of the book goes in separate ways, right? One is the one I mentioned, that where is the information about these beings in the ancient lore.
Hmm.
Another one is what you're saying, the worldview, the cosmonomic aspects of their beliefs. And the third one is the kind of the implications of the two previous ones
Hmm.
that surprised me a lot. We're gonna discuss about that. I sent you some brief
Yes, you sent me
excerpts
some of
on,
the excerpts, so I
yeah,
did
some crazy
definitely read
stuff,
all of
right?
those.
Yeah, we will
Very
discuss about that. Yeah.
tantalizing. They're
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah. So on the cosmonomic aspect, the beliefs of the ancient people, they thought the world was divided, the universe was divided in three levels. One is the God world, the Hanak Pacha, that's how they call it, the middle world, the world we humans live, the Kai Pacha, and the underworld, that is also a world of the gods. It's called the Uku Pacha. And all these worlds are like a range of mirrors. So the real image of these three worlds is the world of the gods, the Hanak Pacha. And the reflection goes transitivity to the different two worlds that are below the Hanak Pacha, right? And I call that the mirror verse. So basically, what they're saying is that the real world is the world of the gods, and here the material world, the Kai Pacha and the Uku Pacha, with these forms in particular, are reflections of the world of the gods. Okay, and there is a very particular geometry to this. The Ukupacha is an inverted triangle. It's actually like a cone, inverted cone, but in 2D it's an inverted triangle. The Kaipacha, the world where we live on, it's a triangle, and as a reflection of the triangle, inverted triangle, as a word of the gods. So you have this transitivity in the figures as well, and also in the time. And this is very interesting because The way they think in time is entirely different. They think they don't separate space and time as we do, as we were taught in the school. For them, are all together. Time, you cannot separate the time from the space. So the static and the dynamic all are the same point. So, and that is also translated to these three levels of the Andean universe. The world of the gods is the future. The world of the humans is the present, and the world, the underworld, the inner world, that is also a world of the gods, is the past. So the way they think the time, it's let's say it's not linear. So if you want to go to the future, you have to go to the past first. So you have to go back and then you go. It's like a buckle, you know. It's like it's the same movement like the Earth following the sun across the sun when it goes around the center of the galaxy. You know.
Hmm.
Um, so basically, the present is an illusion constructed by the constant friction between the past and the future.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's the, let's say, the general frame of the worldview,
Okay.
and this is and in the inner world, the Ukupacha is where these small beings live.
Which is the underworld, yes?
The underworld, exactly. So which is also a reflection of the world of the gods. So this Ukupacha, this inner world, this underworld, is where the small beings live, that are gods, that are powerful, but also have a connection with the humans. They kind of they have this symbiotic relationship with humans. Like we need them, but they also need us. You know, it's not like every man on its own. It's like a big group, like a big family,
Hmm.
right? These are the Apus, the Rowal. They also, so there's, well, the reflection works. They also live in the mountains. You know, so I mean, this is very very interesting. I mean, it's all out there. So
Well, yeah, and it's funny because when I found the petroglyphs that I found that looked like the bodies, one of the things I said to myself was, well, somebody's going to be covering the Peru stuff. I don't even need to really even worry about that. And I think that's who you are. And so I didn't, I barely looked at any of that stuff. I learned a few things, a few of the gods, but I was off running in different directions. And I bring that up because, yeah, the concept of different worlds is again, it's another universality amongst cultures across the world. In India, I think it's Patala is the term they use for the underworld. Naga Patala would be the underworld where the Naga beings exist.
also, like in the Catholic beliefs. I mean, you have the heaven, the world here, and the hell, and that
Right.
happened when this new European religion came to this part of the world. The underworld, the inner world, the world of the small beings became the hell. So they became demons.
Right. But I still think, nonetheless, that that Christian faith is still, that whole concept is still derived. It's a circle again. It's just, I think the Christian church didn't even realize that some of the faiths they were quashing was the same faith that spawned
Oh man, I say the same.
them.
You know the concept of syncretism, that typically, because you have similarities, right, between the Catholic religion, the Christianism, and the Andean religion. And the official explanation, is that the people who wrote this, the Catholic, the Jesuitas, all these people actually kind of contaminated the information they received.
And that seems to be a running narrative, which
So, and,
where I'm at now. Of course, I don't.
right,
They call it these sort of things like the independent innovation. It's very similar. Coincidence is what and things get brushed off as. And the same thing happened with Oceania. There's reports of a trinity of beings in Oceania, and they suggested the same thing. Well, the trinity of beings is there because of contamination.
And I said it's actually like an inverse syncretism. It's actually this part of the world was like a big oracle. So a lot of people for different parts of the world came here to gather information, and that information is spread all over. So it's spread all over, also in the Middle East and now Europe, and that
So
some
do you
basis of
think
that beliefs came back
so
with
do you think
with the
that
Christianism.
that Peru is the central area for a world culture
I mean, South
of
America is
hyperdiffusion?
South
What?
America. At least. South America. I believe
Because I
South America.
suggest it is China and the Himalayas.
Well, add
But don't
South
get me
America to
wrong.
your list.
But what?
Add South America to your
Well,
list.
here's the thing. We're talking about a species or a civilization that probably had aircraft. So what is distance to them? So I always suggest that, South America was either the secret base or the summer resort, for all I know, right?
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong.
No,
I
I get the
fully
point.
believe it's there, but my research has led me to believe that culture, at least for the continent, for culture on the continent, it came from that direction. And that I also, in my research, that ancient China had the quipus, had
Oh, I
the
wasn't aware of that.
yeah.
No.
There's a quote. One emperor. He's like, "Oh, I don't want to use the old string method anymore. Let's invent
Oh,
writing."
nice.
So
That's
I mean,
nice.
that one little tidbit there is like connection, right?
Well,
Or we could say it's independent
yeah.
innovation. And he just happened to create the same idea.
What, what was the name of that culture that was discovered in
This one,
China with all these masks? That's very, very particular. Remember,
oh yeah,
it was very recent.
the Shangzi, the
Shang-Chi or
Shangzhou.
some. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, those masks, those eyes design, those ears are very similar to
they
the
look just
Mochica
like the
culture.
Bolivian
The Mochica
metalwork, doesn't it?
in the north part of Peru
Yes, they
towards
do.
the coast. That's
Yeah,
very, very similar.
yeah, and unfortunately, I think establishment archaeologists and anthropologists, historians
No,
have dismissed
right.
everything as coincidence. And what I've tried to tell people is that the bodies now give us the right to rethink things and come up with new hypotheses. It gives us that right. And so people today are still trying to quote to me the old interpretations. And I said, the old interpretations don't hold anymore. We have a right to come up with new ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about quipus, you remind me this tale about the snake man. Let's put it that name. It was a statue of silver that was found in a copper mine in Bolivia, in the Potosi mountain. I mean, for a long time, it was like the main gold production, mine production in the world. They found there a statue of a man, but from the waist to bottom, it finished like a cone, like an inverted triangle, like a body of a snake, you know. And they said that the statue was very fine crafted. The face was very beautiful, but the eyes were like not well done. Like for example, in 45 angles, like the new mummies that we have found, or there was something funny in the eyes, right? And so they take the statue out of the mountain. It was a big commotion because it was the image of a god. That mountain was related to the mighty Pachacamac. So you can imagine the commotion that happened at the point. But then they
Pachacamac.
Pachacamac. They were like two main deities. One is Viracochan, the other one is Pachacamac. They kind of move like a yin yang at some point. They kind of intertwine. Um,
But Pachacama, he predates the other, yes,
so,
or at
I
least.
mean, this is not that clear. I will say
Mhm.
it's kind of the same God with different It's like an Enlil and Enki, maybe.
Right. Okay.
No,
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've found the same thing. And I do think it is a father and son sort of
that
passing off of who's in control. And,
exactly.
you know,
In some
and
tales
you're
you
absolutely,
find this
because
is the son, this or the older one is the father. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. And I'm finding too, again, when we talk about that, there's way more coincidences that seem to be more than coincidences. And one of those things I found is even with language. So when even in these words you're telling me, I hear the phoneme ka, or morpheme, I should say, ka, which is what I detect as the primary alpha god around the world. And his son, in many instances, is ku. And so ku or ko. And so when I hear these things, I can still hear these echoes of ka and ko in just these two deities' names.
Ko is water.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. And in Asia, it's kuo, and it's like a lake or a body of water.
Yeah, it's a lake.
See what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so glad we talked, because this is
yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about. There are far more tie-ins than we like to admit.
Agree.
Okay, so we're still talking about some deities here. So how about some feminine deities? What have you found out about
Oh,
the ladies?
uh, uh, um, I will say that Viracocha can be a female. It's not a
Okay, well there
masculine.
you go.
It's not
And I
not necessarily a masculine deity.
I'm
Yeah.
going to keep jumping in, the archaeology's
I'm
predicting the
just. I mean, I keep. I mean, no one answered. No one make this question. So I mean, I'm ready to answer.
archaeology's
I
predicting the
was expecting
biology.
for you to have this conversation finally.
Well, I suspected, because of in the mythology of the world, Set goes from being a male and becoming pregnant. Loki becomes a female. Even Yahweh says, "I was Sade" at one point. And amphibians are known for sequential hermaphroditism,
Mhm.
being able to switch sexes dependent on the situation. So for you to say we're a kocha could represent both of the sexes, yes.
Viracocha was, I believe, was more female relation, has a female relation because he was the ruler of the inner world, the underworld. Um, so, and the underworld is more like a feminine word, the,
Right.
with this
So
with the
because
shape.
he's the son in the Trinity.
So it's actually a trinity. That's a great point. So the Kaipacha is the masculine word, and the word Vigos is androgynous, and Pachacamac is an androgynous god.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
and throughout history, we've assigned male to these beings, and we've changed the creator because of our patriarchal system. But yes, in my research, sometimes I realized that even again in Chinese, the name for child is Z, and many times the goddess is Ji, and so it's many times the mythology it's just saying that the child is of the mother. This is the child of the mother, and that's why you're finding that connection to him in the underworld, where it is, like you said, feminine.
yeah.
It's feminine because what is in the mythology of a lot of the cultures is that humanity was birthed from the earth in many cultures.
Well, I mean, one of the most famous gods in the Andean area is Pachamama.
Mm-hmm.
Pachamama is the goddess of fertility, the goddess of the earth. It's also depicted as a small woman,
Mm-hmm.
very short woman with a very thin voice, that seems to be a cover, like masking herself, to not be exactly um, be seen as she is. For example, like covering some tridactyl features, some very particular skull, or even with wearing a mask to cover her face. So that's kind of the great link that the underworld is a feminine world, and Viracocha being a ruler of this world, it's a feminine figure per se, and also this Ukupacha, the underworld, is ruled by the moon. Okay, the sun that goes up on the west rather than the east because it's inverted. Everything in the other world is inverted related to this human world. So everything goes backwards. So if the sun goes up the east, the sun, the our in our world, the sun goes up in the east. In the underworld, the goes go up from the west, right? And that's the moon. That is also a feminine figure, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think we missed an opportunity to maybe Maria should have been Mama Kila.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that being said, our the mascot I use, I have a little cartoon version of the Tridactyls that we named Inti.
Oh, Inti. Nice. Like the gods, like the sun god.
So
I like
yeah,
your
I get
figures.
what
I
we're.
like your cartoons. They're very, very cool.
Thanks, thank you. Yeah, it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm having the time of my life. It sounds like you're having fun with this stuff too. I
Oh, yeah.
really am. I'm happy for your book. Now, I think you wanted to talk about the implications. I think is what you were suggesting. What is the implications of all of this?
Um, I mean, there's this. This is a large topic. First of all,
Yeah.
I think we have to think in how this Nazca Mami's case it's related to, let's say, the other paths of investigation of these alternative investigations. Let's call it that way. How are the Nazca Mummies related to the uh, UFO, sightings? How are the Nazca Mummies related to the ancient aliens, the ancient astronauts theory?
Okay.
How is the
Can I
Nazca Mummy
stop you right
related to the
there?
Skinwalker Ranch?
Let me stop you right there only because we
Hmm.
have a question from an audience member
Oh, nice.
and I can't post it because they asked on one of the chats, but they want to know what you found was what you think any UFO connection to the Tridactyls and the
I have
ancient
found.
past of yeah.
Yes, yes, there is. I believe there is probably the ancient the most ancient tale of a sighting, a UFO sighting in South America that is in the tales, in the chronicles, and this is related to a small being called Wankupa. This is a small being, a small god, son of Pachacamac, that was found deep on the earth. And this god has some, let's say, relationship with a woman. They have offspring, and there is a human male that kind of also relates to this woman. So this tale goes around this man that is a, let's say, a Creole, um, and he kind of regrets what he's doing. We're talking about a tale that was, written by a Catholic at the moment. This is idolatrous hunt situation. So you can feel that in the narrative, yeah. But what he says is that while he's with this woman that is a some priestess, can you say priestess in priestess, or related to this son of Pachacamac. While he's with her, he saw 9 times a light during the night, but a light so strong that can blind you. I mean,
Ooh.
we're not talking. I mean, there's at the time there's nothing. There's no LED. There's no lanterns like we know them. So he saw this strong light that can blind you, but night times, and he described it like a silver plate.
Huh. And who is this again? This
This
is a
is This
This
is
is a
in
Catholic narrative of someone else's story.
Francisco de Avila. Is in the
Okay.
Chronicle of Francisco de
Yes.
Avila in the manuscript of Guarochiri. That is
And
actually there.
and is that his narrative? Is that his eyewitness, or is he is telling the
So
tale?
he received the tale
Okay.
from a local, from a native, uh, but it's not clear that maybe he was actually the guy who experienced this who wrote it.
Ah,
So there, I mean, this is a
fair
discussion
enough.
that archaeologists are having, anthropologists are having, who actually wrote this. So it's very likely
That's
that the
interesting. Hmm.
the main character of the story was the one who wrote it and passed it to this Catholic priest that is called Francisco de Avila.
Oh,
So you
very
have
good.
like a silver plate. I mean, imagine how does it look a silver plate back
It's
in
very
this 17th
specific. It's
century.
like the flying shields of the ancient Romans. That's very specific.
Exactly, it's very
Well, that's
specific.
good to hear. In my research, I haven't found too much about craft, to be honest. I do lean towards our delta, our letter D, could possibly be a fourth god, if you will, in the Trinity, because my research has led me to believe that even the alphabets of the world depict the deities of the past.
Interesting.
So here's a quote I just have on the screen here. I haven't read any of them yet, but this is a good one from Skywatcher Signal. Keep digging, guys, because you are getting to the truth. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
All right.
Skywatcher
Thank you.
Signal. Nice to hear. All right. Okay, so we're talking about the implications. So we have a UFO sighting, and we were talking about, thank you for adding that. That was from one of our listeners. And the implications. What are these implications?
I mean, for me, the case of the Nazca Mummy should be something that should connect all these separate worlds. I mean, I have had discussions with people that came from basically the ufology, and they are more into the conspiracy world. So if this Nazca
Yes.
Mummy doesn't come from a paper, released by the CIA or some ARO, other, I mean,
That's hilarious. I'm sorry, but that's hilarious because it's so
yeah, I
true.
mean, if they don't see it that way, they won't believe it.
Oh,
I
so now
mean,
I know what I
I
have
love
to
you
do.
guys.
I
I
have
love
to
you
write
guys.
my
I love the
reports.
topic, but
I have to
deep down, it's true, right?
I have to write my report, but now I'm going to write it like it's a CIA. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe
maybe they
people
will
will
believe
open the
you.
file.
Exactly. If it's not an X
Oh,
file, they won't believe you.
and I feel like a lot of these guys are like what we called back in high school the motorheads, the guys who worked on the cars, and they're more interested in what makes the thing move, than who's
Right.
driving it.
Right. Good point. Yeah, exactly. And then you
Yeah.
have, for example, you have the other guys. You have the contactees, right?
Yes, and the
It's a very
contactees,
large
I feel
field.
like we owe an apology to because, my God, we've dismissed their stories for all these years, and they're describing what we're seeing.
Some of them they are, some of not, some not. Some of them are very skeptical. I mean, I believe the ones from South America are particularly skeptical.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good to
No
know.
names, no names, but
No,
no names.
let's bring up. We're talking about bodies and forms. So, in your research, what sort of depictions have you seen of these?
This is interesting. So in details, it's not, you cannot find specifics on three fingered, feet, on or hand.
Don't let that. Don't talk about that. I think that's part of the magic. Is that how they were able to conceal this information? You're
Yes,
absolutely right. I
yes,
rarely
and
and
all. Yes, go ahead.
no, I think and I don't even know if there may have been a time where someone said or like stop drawing this or something. I call it the have no graven image theory, which is I think a lot of the information was concealed about these beings, and so they're not going to leave it in print, are they?
Yeah, I mean, the absence of the information is also information, and the other aspect is the elongated skulls. you know.
Right.
But what I believe, what I found is that these were very, how you say in English, cotidianos.
Uh,
Very, they were very. I mean, this
Continuous?
was not a particular feature for them. This was like on a daily basis. They saw people with elongated skulls, with three finger in hands and feet.
This was a
They
normal
were like
occurrence.
that. It was a normal thing for
Yeah,
them.
right, right.
That's what I meant. It wasn't so normal that it wasn't worth to mention to these foreigners that we're coming from. I mean, we are like this. I mean,
Well,
if someone,
maybe.
you won't
I
say,
I
hey,
don't
I have two arms, I have two,
I
I
don't know
have
if you're
two
gonna
legs, I
tell
have a one head.
yeah,
You don't say
true.
that, right?
But I don't know if you're gonna tell the invaders about the gods either.
Also, I mean, I believe both are in action. Both theses are in action.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
I believe those bodies came to South America from somewhere else initially and may have visited multiple continents. I don't know if they came from the east or if they came from the west, but the very least, I'm finding evidence of what I suggest is, if you're familiar with the specimens, is evidence of Victoria in ancient
Victoria.
China.
Yeah, yeah.
So somehow there's some, and of course we know, if you know the genetics, Maria has Han and Myanmar DNA, which before that was even released, I suggested, oh, these beings are the Naga or the dragon people of China. And then for her DNA to come back Myanmar, which is all about the dragon queen cult of the Naga, and for the Han people is where some of the first dragon myths originated from.
But the dragon is very present. The reptile feature is everywhere, especially in the cultures in the coast.
Mm,
The Mochica, so maybe, yeah, maybe there was some contact for sure. I mean, you
for
cannot
sure.
deny
You
that
know,
for sure, and
in an
it's
anthropology
so right.
class, it was suggested that ceviche was
Okay.
invented for the god kings in the
Oh,
higher elevations, and they would have to preserve. And I don't know if you heard some of the studies, but Rangel
hmm.
suggests that maybe Maria died from some sort of, bad seafood. And it makes me think, I'm like, gee, did ceviche get invented after that? Like, oh my god, we just killed the goddess. We need to we need to do something with the seafood. But it's amazing in my research. It's like even the most benign little things in human culture could very well be
Mm,
a trickle down effect of a cultural hyper diffusion across the world.
yeah.
So I was asking you about any sort of forms and figures. What about in the artistic record?
Oh, and the artistic record is everywhere. But you can find the tridactyl feature everywhere, especially in Paracas, in the area of Paracas that is about, let's say, 4 hours south of Lima. It's a long drive, but you get there. It's a beautiful place. It's actually like a very protected area, So I believe at some point they were kind of protecting themselves, um and it's very, very, I mean, great that you have images there, yeah, because I believe the Paracas area is it should I mean should be the place where you have the largest concentration of elongated skulls in the world. I mean, can you go up? Can you do the previous image? That one. I mean, I didn't put this on the book, but if you
No,
take
yeah,
a
I just
look
opened.
at
This is a
the
random web
Paracas
page.
Bay, if you look at rotated to the right,
Up
it looked
here.
like a skull of a small reptilian being.
Yeah, well, I think right here it looks like a serpentine being here.
Right, but the previous picture, that one,
Which one?
that one, the
Which
previous
one?
one. Go up. That with the map, the one with the map.
Okay. You're saying, yeah. That's interesting. You say that. I am not above suggesting that these beings may have very well have terraformed the planet and
I believe there is some evidence in
left
that regard.
images. You know, I believe in the life from the mouth motif, which you may have seen in some of the Paracas. Serpentine forms emerging from the mouths of others.
So that one that you have there, the one with the three figures, um, the, the figure in the center, you have these kind of waves going out of the skull and in touching these two other figures that are also tridactyls.
And they're all
The ancient
tridactyls.
ones believe that the soul is in the skull.
Yeah.
It's in there. So that's why the skull is so sacred from them. You can have a skull and the soul of the ancient of the past one is still there. So maybe they're referring to the pineal gland, very likely. And I said this in the book. It will be awesome if they found there is a pineal gland in some of the bodies. And actually, I think they find one. They find you
I
posted
did
something.
personally.
You did, right? You
I
posted.
suggested that
You
they were
suggested.
gonna. I suggested they were gonna have a
Yeah.
pineal gland because of the artistic record,
Yeah.
and I suggested it was going to be in the pneumatic concave region behind the supraorbital skull. And then when they released sagittal cuts of Alberto's skull, I'm like, and there it is.
Yeah.
There's the pineal gland. And so if there's skeptics out there, I mean, the pineal gland. So I do think that's part of it. However, there's another strange thing that I call related to what I call the mind-born motif that is related to the life from the mouth motif, is life born of the mind. And these beings appear to have limited to no separation between skull and torso. So I suggest that if these beings are being born within the bodies and they're hybrids, and maybe the hybrid larvae are confused, if you will end up going to various parts of the body, and perhaps this is the origin of trephination, this is the origin of souls, this is the origin of exorcism, etc., etc., etc.
Interesting. The trepanation, the surges, right? That's what you're saying. Trepanation, yeah. Because you have these natural macrocephalous people, and then you have the artificial ones, right? There's a lot of discussion that people are saying, the macrocephalous are all natural, like
Right.
Robert Forster, Forster, and I don't recall the first name of that investigator.
Brian Foster, yeah.
Ryan, right. And so Brian Foster.
Yeah, I
So-
tried to get in touch with him to see if he was.
He's based in Paracas, right? He's based in Peru, in Paracas. He's kind of
Yeah.
running one of the museums there. I had the chance to visit that place. So he's saying that he has evidence of natural macrocephalous, people, skull, but the artificial, the artificial, the elongated
Artificial
skull,
deformation,
the artificial deformation. Thank you. That is a fact. So
Right,
so
absolutely.
I don't think this goes on separate alleys. I mean, you
No.
have to
It's
think,
emulation.
why are
It's
you
emulation of the gods. Yeah.
exactly the emulation? But I believe that this was like a recessive gene. The kind of the feature of the tridactyl feature, the macrocephalous feature, is a recessive one, and this is in the lore of the Indians. So when you have like a Homo sapiens and an hybrid between an Homo sapiens and Homo Nazca, let's call it that way, the Nazca gene comes recessive. So after several generations, the three finger, the elongated skull goes missing. So
Yeah.
that's why I believe that the artificial deformation of the skull was something that they were doing because they were losing, this particular characteristic.
Yeah.
And I believe that this characteristic has something related to what you just mentioned, some sort of communication with the gods, with themselves, with the nature, with the world. And I believe the trepanation was performed only to the artificial elongated skulls because they were kind of trying to get something that they were missing. the common belief is that the trepanation is related to let the evil away,
Right,
or
right.
if or a surgery, right? If you have some damage in your
Yeah, I
skull.
mean, I'm
But I believe they
suggesting
were
that they
trying to
even.
get something in, something that we're missing to bring it in.
Mhm. Yeah, I suggest it's from this mind-born event. I'm still looking for the perfect tridactyl specimen that may appear to have a damaged skull, and maybe I don't know which one it is that could relate to this theory. Hey, real quick, looking at this picture here, this looks like a piece of what I call steganography, meaning that while we see a winged figure, I suggest that the whole piece is actually a steganographic face of the being hidden within,
Oh, I see. I
with the
see it.
two little heads playing eyes, the
Absolutely.
wide head, and it's not just this piece. This is something I see. It's
Mm,
another motif,
mm.
which is frequent. Many times, a flying animal is depicted as the face or head of the beings. Going down here, look at this. We have some what appears to be some front limb first forward metamorphosis, as I suggested, is going to be found within the eggs. I've found at least 4 larvae so far. I've taken the liberty to start naming them.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, that's good.
I mean, if no one else is, right?
Right.
Um, so I do have a couple of comments here I'd like to read. You guys are swimming against a hard tide. I fully respect you for diving into this topic. Thanks again, Skywatcher Signal, for saying that. He had another quote up here, too, that says, let's see, where was another one? Here we go. This was another nice comment from Skywatcher Signal. Come ask your questions, the two most knowledgeable people on the topic. Yeah, if you guys are watching right now, feel free to drop a question in one of the many different streams. We are on YouTube. I think we're on TikTok. I'm not sure. We should be on X. We should be on Facebook. And I think we're on Twitch. Yeah. So what else we got here? Let's see. Here's another comment from Sky. Keep them coming, Sky. Well done for listening to these guys. Oh, he's talking to his friend here and realizing this is the smoking gun. Yeah, this is
Oh, yeah.
disclosure, guys. Disclosure isn't going to happen from a government, especially not the U.S. government. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Come on. But it's going to come from a grassroots movement of independent researchers. Again, David and I are not collaborators in any sense. And here we are collaborating because, sure enough, the myths of the world are related. There is a universal cosmology that we seem to have ignored, and we've dismissed everything as coincidence. Now, God forbid that's a conspiracy, but I think there is some positive woo in all of this. You know, may the force be with you, live long and prosper. There is some positive woo to this, which I suggest is all of the people of planet Earth are one people, and they come from one belief system. And by waging war and treating people as less than human, well, then we would be no better than a non-human overseer if we are doing that to our fellow man. And I think that has to be considered. Someone said that. They said,
Yes.
you know, Ed, war is inhuman. And I always say war is waged against the descendants of our ancestors, of our very ancestors we wage war against. So I
Mhm.
think that is part of the
Mhm.
positive woo. Did you get any positive messages? Did you have any sense of a spiritual message or awakening from this? I know I've definitely had a sort of my own sort of moment here with this whole phenomenon. It's been overwhelming at times.
Like a personal journey, you're saying?
Exactly. Well, a personal journey or some sort of bit of ancient wisdom maybe you came across, or your own interpretation of ancient wisdom.
Yeah, what I get a lot is the we misunderstood what is to be human. We tend to, appropriate of a word that not only belong to us, that also belong to these, we call it beings, but I believe they are also humans. I don't like the word non-human for the Nazca people. I don't like the word extraterrestrial for the
Yeah,
Nazca
a
people. That's my
proto-human might
MIO.
be better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe, and not even proto. I mean, it's It's, I mean, they live in this world. They breathe this air. They drank this water. They ate the same food we ate. They live with us. We coexisted like a big family, like the macrocephalos, the natural ones, the artificial ones, the small beings, the ones like Maria, like Montserrat, the ones like you and me, all this like a big community all together collaborating. That at some point went sour, I believe. But they are entitled to be called as humans as we are. That's my, I mean, that's my personal belief in this matter.
That's great. Yeah, when people call them extraterrestrials, I use a term. I call them terrestrials. As in
Mm,
an archaeological term that refers to Sumer and ancient. Or when they call them aliens, I say ancestors, because in my research, in every culture, they're either
yeah,
creator beings, mother goddesses, ancestors, fertility beings. It's all the same thematic
agree.
answer. What's what the ancients are telling us. And I think ultimately religion was never about worshiping. It was always supposed to be about remembering, sort of remember where you came from. And it
Mhm.
was it was
And the ancient
maybe something
religion.
that you wouldn't recognize today.
Mm,
And I think that is the another message here is that if we can't accept our fellow man, how can we accept hermaphroditic, proto amphibian creatures?
exactly.
How can we accept that? And so I think it's something we have to look to. Normally during my shows, I give away a one of these tridactyl heads. But this week, instead of giving away random, I want to send you one. So make sure, David, you send me your address later
Awesome.
so I can send you a
Oh, thank
replica
you.
Josephina head here.
I love to have one. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, and we got one more question down here. That's great. Let's check this out. I'm going to put it on the screen.
All right.
Do you think there is living remnant of these mummies, or that is solely a historical find? I'll let David go first on that
Ooh,
one.
great question.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
So I don't know if you recall, but maybe you don't, because this was like at the end, and no one actually realized the importance of the information. This was in the audience, in the second audience in the Mexican Congress, back
Okay.
in, correct me if I'm wrong, back in July, I believe.
Okay.
At the end of the second conference, the audience, sorry, there was one radiologist, and yeah, I mean, it wasn't a very old guy, let's say, right? But he was one of the first in analyzing the mummies.
Mm,
He presented an X-ray from, he doesn't recall exactly now if it was from the 70s or the 80s, and he showed an X-ray of a woman that came to a hospital in her 40s and had three fingers in the hands, and the woman was doing something with the hands. She was using the hands like a normal person, and he performed the X-rays, and he showed the X-rays, and I'm talking to the radiologist. I'm having a conversation with him next week because I want more information. I mean, this is a clear signal that these beings, this, let's call it a being, let's call it, or a gene or a feature, I don't know, it's still there, it's still
yeah.
inside us.
And
Maybe
there
we
might be
lost it
other
at some
features
point.
or traits that come
There
out
are other
now and then.
traits there. So the I believe the answer to that question is yes. We are at some point. We have some of that. That woman in her 40s, back in the 80s, has something tridactyl feature in there. So who
Hmm.
who were her parents, her
Yeah.
grandfathers, her grandmother?
Right.
That's what I want to know. That's what I want
Right. Yeah, but sure
to
that
dig in.
there may be other records of that in her family. I
Yes.
suggest too that that there are people that suggest they see the ant people still, and again the abductees. We have their narratives. So
Mm.
each archaeological site, each World Heritage site, whether it's a pyramid or a stupa or even a mountain, could be a place for these beings to live safely within their means underground. And that being so small, I feel like they could go anywhere they want. And who knows what other sort of traits they have. Can they act like a chameleon and disappear into the foliage? Is Antarctica a great continent full of, an entire civilization of these things?
They call the pyramids Ushnu. But Ushnu has two meanings, like a pyramid, but also like a well. And a well is like a cone, right? So they have this, again, this reflection, this mirroring concept. So it's not surprising to me to see that it might be underground structures below the Giza, the pyramids at the Giza Plateau.
Right.
Giza Plateau, right? And
And
also below in Mexico, and maybe some others in Chile and Peru that we have to dig in, but it's there.
Yeah, it's definitely there. And I've suggested too, in some cultures in Southeast Asia, a termite mound is associated with the ancestors. And that implies to me more knowledge of the beings coming from the earth. So when we talk about these archaeological sites in Turkey where they say, oh, why did the people dig into the mountain to go live underground? And maybe that's not the direction they came from. Maybe they emerged from underground to the surface. And that's what the pyramids are kind of looking like.
That's in the Indian lore. There is this myth about these first eight in four couples that they came to the Caipacha, and these are called the Ayar brothers.
Yes,
and there are
I'm
two
familiar
tales.
with them.
Yeah,
That's
there are
also
two
universal.
ways to tell the story. They came. There are three ways actually. One is they emerged from Lago Titicaca. The third one is that they emerged from a cave in Tambutoco.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is that they emerged through three windows, likely in Machu Picchu. And
Windows could
all
be
these are related together
yeah.
because a window is something that if you're based in the Caipacha and you look at the window, the guy is coming through a window. But if you look down, the guy is coming through the cave. You look inside the cave. So these are again acting like a mirroring, not related. If you put these three places actually on a straight line, you construct that is called the Viracocha path or the Ayar path. There's actually a 45 degrees line between Tiwanaku and Machu Picchu, passing through Tambutoco and a lot of places as well. So this is basically an underground construction that runs from Lago Titicaca in Bolivia near Tiwanaku and Pumapunku to Machu Picchu, around 400 or 500 kilometers long.
Wow.
And we need to go there, Ed.
Yeah, man, let's go. Let's get an expedition going, I hope you have a silly hat. You got a silly hat?
I do have.
Hey, we got a statement here. Could we look for more small traits that are visible in mummies that may be visible genetically today? A lot of information could be found. Now, don't quote me on this. I haven't done the full research, but we may possess a cross-hatching skin pattern similar to the tridactyl skin that chimpanzees may not have. Again, don't quote me on that. That's something we can look into further. Or if they do have it, I should say it's not as pronounced. So one of the things I've researched is that I found this cross-hatching pattern that like a hashtag that you find on social media. And when I saw it, it seemed to allude to reptiles. It was on pottery that seemed to allude to serpents. And then when the skin came in with close-ups of the skin, there is a definitive rhomboid cross-hatching pattern of the skin that I suggest may be replicated in the pottery of the Americas. Because again, they want to remember these beings.
We have some reptilian features inside, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And that explains a lot of us. Probably explains why I don't have hair on the top of my head. Right? Why we can swim when we're born, why we're not covered in fur, right? Yeah, a lot of things are becoming clear. So isn't it, let me ask you this, isn't this interesting to be at the forefront of such a grand discovery?
I mean, yeah.
I
It
could
is.
feel overwhelmed at times. You know, when I
Yeah.
was looking at
Yeah. I
this
mean,
and I
yeah.
was thinking that the Maori people of New Zealand considered faces like this the ancestor, it kind of chokes me up.
Yeah. I don't think we realize actually what we're doing, but
Yeah, they
all
don't,
the
right?
important, right. So, but yeah.
Here's another comment from somebody. People have a hard enough time getting along already. Can you imagine if you learn some people are ancestors to the track that, and some of us aren't? Oh, I know. That's a good point. That could be a little bit of a, that could be a dicey time.
Mm,
I
mm,
hear you. Ed is covered in fur.
mm.
Well, that is true. I think I have a little more Neanderthal in me. You know, I have Basque blood in me from the Pyrenees. Wow. I think this has been a great time. I think we covered a lot of good, interesting topics. Maybe we can do it again, a part 2, where we cover more
Absolutely.
things, you know? So thank you
Absolutely.
so
Anytime.
much for coming on. I'm glad we got to do this. I'm glad we got to, yeah, here's somebody here that's like being, being on the forefront of this is almost dreamlike. Nobody else is looking. Yeah, it's very strange. Some of the, I see people's eyes glass over when I tell them some of this stuff. It goes
Mm,
over their head.
mm.
I'm like, this isn't your daddy's Ancient Aliens. We've moved past, I think, a lot of
Right.
the original myths.
Right.
Okay, one more comment. Boy, the comments just keep coming in. I was just looking at this on my own skin the other day. My kids thought I was nuts. Ha! Yeah, so we have a little cross-hatching pattern. You can see on the back of people's necks when they get really weathered, if they're, especially if they're fair skin, they'll see this grandiose pattern that matches the Tridactyls. And I don't think the chimps have it quite as much. But I think that is a wrap, David. It's been an hour show. I think that's a perfect time for a show. Thank you so much. Live long and prosper. Here's a
Thank you. It's been an honor, Ed,
three
here with you.
fingers to you. Here's
Three
another
fingers.
one for you. Awesome. All right, I'll talk to you online. Send me over your address so we can send you ahead. Thank you, everybody,
Appreciate
for
that.
watching. Live long and prosper. Like I said, this has been Let's Talk Tridactyls. We were never alone.